There's a hidden danger spreading across America right now, and almost nobody sees it. Stores look normal, shelves look full, and life feels business as usual. But behind the scenes, something is breaking. Quietly, rapidly. And if you don't prepare now, it could all be gone before March 2026. I'm going to show you exactly what's happening, because what the public sees is only the surface. What I'm about to reveal comes from reports, insider leaks, and financial data that never make it into the headlines. And once you understand what's really going on, you will realize why item 3 in this breakdown might be the biggest red flag yet. One that will shock you. Most people won't notice the collapse until it hits their neighborhood. But you're not most people. You're here, you're listening, and you're about to learn the truth they aren't telling you. Number 1. Rising prices and shrinking stability. The signs of collapse are already here. You're just seeing them in places you never expected. When billion-dollar fast food chains, companies with massive supply networks and decades of brand loyalty, can no longer keep their doors open, that's not a small issue. That's a red flag for every household in the country. These chains have always been designed to survive economic storms, absorb losses, and push forward. But now, even they're cracking under the pressure. Rising food prices, labor shortages, debt, lawsuits, endless competition, and the crushing weight of inflation are tearing them apart. And here is the truth. What's happening to them today will happen to regular families tomorrow, unless you prepare. Just look at what's happening inside the industry. Jack in the Box, once a West Coast late-night staple, is drowning in costs. The price of every ingredient, from beef to lettuce to buns, has spiked so aggressively that even their diverse menu has become a problem. Every extra item requires storage, staffing, supply coordination, and equipment. When those costs soared, the system collapsed. Supply chain snarls, ingredient shortages, negative reviews, angry franchise owners walking out. In fact, some regions lost their Jack in the Box locations entirely because the operators simply could not afford to stay open. Think about that. Businesses designed to run 24/7, businesses that were built around volume, couldn't survive rising costs. If they can't manage it, how will households that live paycheck to paycheck manage when food prices rise again? Checkers and Rallies are facing the same nightmare. They tried the low-budget model, cheap deals, small stores, fast service. But inflation doesn't care about your business strategy. Suddenly, their $1 deals were losing money. Their labor costs shot up. Their stores faced staffing shortages so severe that many had to reduce hours or close temporarily. Customers showed up to find the lights off. Sales dropped 12% in a single year. These chains depend on heavy foot traffic, yet even their loyal customers are staying home because their own budgets are tight. That as the real warning. People aren't just spending less on fast food. They were spending less everywhere. And when millions of households start cutting back, entire industries begin to collapse. This is the same pressure that is turning everyday grocery shopping into a financial burden for families. The same inflation that destroyed profit margins for fast food chains is the same inflation that will keep driving the cost of basic food higher and higher. Eggs, rice, bread, meat, everything is more expensive than it was just a year ago, and the trend is only accelerating. When corporate giants talk about ingredient costs punishing margins, imagine what that means for you and your kitchen table. You are the final link in the chain. You're the one absorbing the last wave of price hikes. They can raise menu prices. You're the one who has to pay them. But what happens when rising prices hit a point where even you can't absorb them anymore? What makes this crisis even more dangerous is how silent and slow it looks from the outside. People think, oh, it's just a few fast food chains shutting down. Or, prices will go back to normal. But history shows us something different. Food prices rarely drop after a major inflation wave. They stabilize at the new, higher level or increase again. And when a system is weak, it doesn't hit rock bottom all at once. It cracks, then it fractures, then it breaks completely. That's exactly what's happening now. McDonald's is struggling with lawsuits, rising beef prices, PR disasters, environmental regulation pressure, and franchise owners who are fed up with mandatory expensive remodels. Burger King is closing stores at record speed because many of their operators simply can't pay for upgrades or keep enough staff to operate consistently. If McDonald's and Burger King are showing stress fractures, then we are witnessing a deeper economic rot much bigger than fast food. This is why everyday food is becoming a luxury, and why it will become even worse. When supply chains weaken, when businesses collapse, when inflation rises, when debt increases, the cost of survival shifts onto families. This is why preparedness isn't optional anymore. You need to start thinking like someone living through a slow-motion crisis, because that's exactly what's happening. The chains collapsing now are warning signs. They're telling you what the future is going to look like. Higher prices, fewer choices, inconsistent availability, and unstable access to basic essentials. This is why now, not later, is the time to begin building your food resilience. Start stocking items that survive long-term storage. Rice, beans, oats, canned meats, dried fruits, shelf-stable milk, pasta, flour, cooking oil, salt, sugar, seasonings. Start looking at what prices are today and imagine them being 20% higher, because they will be. And once they rise, they rarely return to normal. The families that prepare today will survive tomorrow. The ones who delay will struggle. You don't have to build your stockpile overnight. You just have to start. One item at a time. One extra bag of rice, one extra box of pasta, one extra can of vegetables. Over weeks and months, these small steps add up to security. Because if billion-dollar chains are falling apart under economic pressure, then households with no cushion, no supplies, and no backup plan are in serious danger. You can't stop inflation. You can't stop supply shortages. But you can choose to protect your home. You can choose to prepare. And that choice starts right now, with you taking your first step toward building a food reserve that will keep your family safe no matter how high the prices climb. Number 2. When businesses collapse, communities collapse. When a fast food chain shuts down, most people shrug it off. They assume it's just a business decision, a bad manager, or a simple case of poor performance. But that's not what's actually happening right now. What we're witnessing is something far bigger and far more dangerous: the breakdown of community infrastructure. Every time a major chain closes its doors, whether Jack in the Box, Checkers, Crystal, or even Burger King, it sends shockwaves through the neighborhoods that depend on it. These aren't just restaurants. They're sources of employment, local circulation of money, stable food access, and recognizable anchors in the economic ecosystem. And when they vanish, the entire community feels the impact. Think about it. A single fast food restaurant might employ 15 to 30 people. Managers, cooks, cleaners, cashiers, students working part-time, single parents working double shifts. These are real people whose livelihoods depend on that paycheck. When chains like Checkers began shutting down dozens of locations quietly in 2023 and 2024, those closures didn't just remove a place to eat. They removed incomes. They removed stability. In communities that are already struggling, losing a job isn't just an inconvenience. It's a crisis. Multiply that by dozens of closures across a region, and you have an economic hole that keeps getting deeper. Business collapse leads directly to financial collapse for families. And the more this happens, the more we begin to see a pattern that shouldn't be ignored. The transcript makes it clear. Franchise owners are walking away. They're closing locations not because they want to, but because they can't survive. Rising wages, higher costs, labor shortages, expensive required remodels, and crushing debt have made it impossible for many of them to stay afloat. Entire regions lost Jack in the Box stores, Because franchisees refuse to keep losing money. Burger King saw more than a dozen multi-unit operators exit the system in 1 year alone. These aren't isolated failures. They're symptoms of a failing economic structure. When owners who once operated dozens of locations suddenly decide it's not worth it anymore, you know the system is collapsing from the inside. And the collapse doesn't stop there. When businesses close and workers lose income, community spending shrinks. People stop eating out. They stop shopping. They delay repairs. They cancel plans. That decrease in local spending then affects gas stations, small shops, grocery stores, convenience stores, and local service providers. One chain shutting down becomes the trigger for a chain reaction of decline. This is why it's so dangerous to ignore the signs. What looks like a fast food problem is actually a community collapse problem. And right now, that collapse is accelerating. We saw the warning signs even more clearly in Krystal's struggle. This chain went bankrupt in 2020, then tried to rebuild, only to fall right back into the same problems. Their workers were quitting faster than they could be replaced. Locations reduced hours, closed randomly, or stayed open with skeleton crews. Customers would show up only to find empty counters, dark dining rooms, or signs that said, "temporarily closed." That's not just a business failing. That's a community losing reliability. When even basic services don't function properly, people lose trust in their surroundings. They start to feel the instability, and instability spreads, and this is where the danger becomes personal. If entire chains can't maintain operations because they can't get enough staff or ingredients, how long before grocery stores face the same issues? How long before supply shortages become normal? How long before your local economy begins to mirror the collapse of these restaurants? These failing brands are giving you a preview of what's coming next. Reduced availability, inconsistent service, rising prices, and sudden closures. And when this becomes widespread, life gets harder for everyone. This is why preparedness matters, not for the distant future, but for right now. When the system breaks, you need to be insulated from the fallout. That means having emergency supplies so that if local stores reduce hours, close suddenly, or run out of stock, your household remains stable. When communities lose jobs and spending power, crime increases, poverty rises, and stress becomes normal. In these environments, your home must become your safe zone, your fortress of stability in an unstable environment. Preparedness is not just food storage, it's resilience building. You need backup sources of water, alternative cooking methods, basic medical supplies, flashlights, batteries, multi-tools, and communication backups. Because if the collapse of businesses continues, and all signs say it will, you cannot rely solely on outside systems to take care of you. Your community may fail. Your stores may fail. Employment opportunities may shrink. But if you prepare, your household won't fail. The fall of these fast food chains teaches us a critical lesson. When big systems collapse, they collapse at every level. Economic breakdowns don't stay contained. They spill into neighborhoods, homes, families, and individual lives. But you don't have to be a victim of that collapse. You can prepare, plan, and strengthen your home now, while others ignore the warning signs. Right now, you have a choice. Watch the collapse unfold around you, or start building your own stability before the next business closure becomes the next local crisis. Don't wait until it hits your neighborhood directly. The warning signs are already here. Number 3. The hidden crisis. Nobody is talking about. If you really want to understand how close we are to a full-blown societal breakdown, you need to look at the one thing holding everything together: the supply chain. Most people don't think about it. They assume products just arrive at stores, that trucks will always keep moving, that shelves will magically refill overnight. But the truth is, our supply chain is extremely fragile. So fragile that even billion-dollar fast food chains can tea rely on it anymore. And when companies with national distribution networks and decades of experience start experiencing shortages, delays, and logistical chaos, that is your warning sign. Because what hurts them today will cripple households tomorrow. Fast food chains have always been built for efficiency. They depend on precise deliveries, predictable ingredient flow, and a steady rhythm of supply and demand. Yet the transcript shows how this system is falling apart. Jack in the Box couldn't sought to even get consistent supplies for something as basic as tacos and burgers. Their diverse menu, once a competitive strength, became a liability when the supply chain tightened. Egg rolls, breakfast burritos, taco shells, ingredients that used to show up without fail, suddenly became inconsistent, delayed, or overpriced. That inconsistency translated into long wait times, online delivery mistakes, angry customers, and disastrous reviews. If a billion-dollar company can't get lettuce and tortillas delivered on time, imagine what happens when households need basic groceries in an emergency. Crystal faced an even more brutal reality. They couldn't even get buns or condiments, two of the simplest, most common items in the food industry. Those shortages weren't random. They were the result of choke points in transportation, manufacturing bottlenecks, and rising costs that forced suppliers to prioritize larger buyers. And even then, the big chains weren't protected. Customers walked into Crystal locations only to find entire menu items unavailable. Social media filled with complaints about missing products, inconsistent service, and unpredictable hours. But that's the terrifying part. This didn't just reflect a failing company. This reflected a failing system. When staples like bread and condiments can't be reliably delivered, that's a sign the supply chain is buckling from the inside. Checkers and Rallies suffered the same fate. Their tiny stores and small staff meant they couldn't adapt when demand shifted or deliveries were late. A single missed shipment could shut down an entire location, and because their business model depended on serving food fast, any disruption, no matter how small, destroyed their ability to operate. The result was chaos, reduced hours, sudden closures, and a steady decline in customer confidence. Again, this is not just a restaurant problem. This is a preview of what happens when the supply chain thins out, when transportation costs rise, when labor shortages hit warehouses and trucking companies, and when inflation pushes the cost of basic goods out of reach. Even McDonald's and Burger King, two of the largest global food chains, are feeling the strain. The transcript mentions rising ingredient costs, environmental restrictions, regulatory pressure, and labor shortages. But those are just symptoms. The real problem is that the entire supply chain is becoming unstable. A single disruption in beef production, packaging, shipping, or fuel prices can push menu prices higher overnight. And because these chains operate at massive scale, even small hiccups turn into major operational failures. When they struggle to secure supplies, it is a preview of what will happen to households who have far fewer resources and zero backup plans. This is why you cannot trust the system to provide for you in times of crisis. A fragile supply chain means shelves can empty fast. All it takes is one storm, one fuel shortage, one economic shock, one trucking strike, or one manufacturing delay, and entire regions can experience shortages. We saw this during the pandemic. We've seen it during winter storms. We've seen it after hurricanes. And now we're seeing it during normal times, the warning sign most people ignore. If shortages happen, even when things are supposedly stable, what do you think will happen during an actual crisis? This is why preparedness is not optional. It's essential. You need to build your own micro-supply chain inside your home, a buffer between you and the chaos outside. Start with shelf-stable foods that last years: rice, beans, lentils, oats, pasta, canned vegetables, peanut butter, tuna, freeze-dried meals, salt, sugar, spices. Add in essentials like water storage, filtration systems, first aid kits, batteries, alternative cooking methods, and tools that help you function even if the normal supply network collapses. These items are not just prepper gear. They are life insurance for your household. The fast food industry collapse proves something undeniable. The system is overstretched, overdependent, and underprepared for shocks. You cannot rely on last-minute shopping anymore. You cannot assume stores will restock tomorrow. You cannot assume trucks will arrive on time. And you cannot assume that governments or corporations will fix this in time to protect you. No one is coming to save you. But you can save yourself. By preparing now, while items are still available, you create safety and stability for your family. You build resilience that the collapsing system cannot take away. Because once the supply chain breaks completely, it will be too late to start. The shelves will be empty. Prices will skyrocket. Panic will spread. And those who didn't prepare will be forced into desperate decisions. This is your warning. The collapse is already visible through the failures of major brands. Use this moment to act. Build your supply today, because tomorrow the system may fail you when you need it most. Number 4. Corporate giants aren't safe. The moment you realize that even the biggest giants are shaking, you understand how deep this crisis truly is. Because if there's one thing people believed would never fail, it was the golden arches of McDonald's or the flame-grilled kingdom of Burger King. These brands have been cultural symbols for decades, icons of stability, convenience, and global dominance. Yet now, even these corporate titans are showing cracks so large that industry experts are whispering the unthinkable. If the current trajectory continues, even the biggest fast food chains may not survive the next few years without drastic changes. And when the giants start falling, it means the ground beneath all of us is collapsing. The transcript makes something very clear. McDonald's is facing a perfect storm. Rising beef prices, skyrocketing operational expenses, lawsuits, labor shortages, inflation, environmental pressure, and customer backlash. This is not one problem, it's dozens, all hitting at the same time. Even after spending billions on upgrades, sleek interiors, digital menu boards, self-order kiosks, McDonald's can't escape the deeper structural issues. Their franchise owners, the backbone of the brand, are openly questioning whether these expensive renovations bring any real profit. Some are refusing to reinvest. Others are walking away entirely. And when franchisees revolt, the entire chain suffers. This isn't just a business issue. It's a sign of widespread economic strain that ordinary households will feel even more intensely. Then you look at Burger King, and the situation becomes even more alarming. In 2024, Burger King shuttered a record number of U.S. restaurants, not because they wanted to, but because their franchise operators couldn't keep up with the financial bleed. Inflation hit them like a hammer. Franchisees were drowning under the weight of mandatory remodels, expensive branding updates, and rising ingredient costs. When the parent company pushed the Burger King of Tomorrow initiative, operators rebelled. Many said the upgrades were too expensive, and the return on investment was too uncertain. Some simply gave up. By 2025, more than a dozen multi-unit operators had exited the system entirely. This is not a chain in transition. This is a chain in crisis. If you zoom out, you begin to see the bigger pattern. Even massive corporations with global supply chains, national distribution systems, and decades of customer loyalty are being crushed by economic forces they cannot control. Now ask yourself, if they can't survive inflation, shortages, debt, labor pressure, and rising operational costs, how will the average family survive when those same pressures hit home? These companies have resources, lawyers, suppliers, investors. But regular families, they only have what's in their pantry, what's in their wallet, and what they've prepared for. You also need to understand that when corporations begin failing publicly, things behind the scenes are even worse. McDonald's has been hit with multiple lawsuits, accusing them of dangerous working conditions and corporate negligence. Social media has amplified every mistake, every delay, every inconsistent experience. Younger consumers, especially millennials and Gen Z, are increasingly abandoning brands they view as unethical, unhealthy, or outdated. Combine that with rising food prices, and these chains are being squeezed from every direction. This isn't just a corporate crisis, it's a cultural shift, and the environmental and regulatory pressures are adding fuel to this fire. Governments cracking down on single-use plastics, activists targeting beef-heavy menus, cities demanding eco-friendly packaging. All of these changes require massive investment, new suppliers, and new logistics. McDonald's tried switching to paper straws, recyclable packaging, but the added costs hit hard. Franchise owners complained. Customers complained. Changes were inconsistent and expensive. A chain that once seemed untouchable is now struggling to adapt to a world that's changing faster than it can handle. This is why trusting big systems is dangerous. For decades, people believed corporations were stable, reliable, and permanent. But now the truth is obvious. Corporations are not invincible. They're vulnerable. And when they collapse, they don't warn you ahead of time. They just disappear. One day the lights go out. The next day the sign comes down. And just like that, another piece of community stability is gone. This is the part that matters most for you. When corporate giants fail, they don't absorb the impact. You do. Prices rise. Availability drops. Jobs disappear. Service declines. And once collapse begins, it spreads. We saw it with banks. We saw it with retail. We're seeing it now with fast food. Soon, we will see it in other industries. The signs are everywhere. The systems we depend on are cracking. This is why you need to begin preparing your household today for financial instability. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Today. Build a savings buffer, even if it's small. Eliminate unnecessary subscriptions. Reduce debt. Strengthen your pantry. Start cooking more at home instead of relying on restaurants that may not be open tomorrow. Learn alternative skills. Diversify your income streams. These aren't panic responses. They're survival strategies. Because the fall of giants teaches us a simple truth. If they can collapse, anyone can collapse. The world is entering a period of instability unlike anything we've seen in decades. And the people who take action now, who prepare, who plan, who fortify their home, will be the ones who get through it safely. You can't stop McDonald's or Burger King from crumbling, but you can stop your household from crumbling with them. The time to secure your financial and survival foundation is right now, before the next giant falls, and before the shockwaves reach your doorstep. Number 5. What this means for you. When you step back and look at everything happening right now, the store closures, the bankruptcies, the shortages, the rising prices, the failing franchises, the overwhelmed supply chain, you start to see the truth that most people refuse to face. The world you've known your whole life is changing, and it's not changing slowly. It's changing fast. The collapse of iconic fast food chains isn't just about losing a place to grab a burger. It's a sign that the systems we depend on every single day are weakening. And when large systems weaken, it is always the average family that pays the price first. That's why this moment is so critical. You can't just watch this crisis unfold. You have to respond to it. Because your preparedness is the only thing standing between your family and the chaos spreading across the economy. The transcript shows the truth hidden behind the glowing signs and corporate commercials. These chains are barely hanging on. Jack in the Box watching franchisees walk away. Checkers and Rallies shutting down locations quietly. Crystal struggling with debt and shortages, even after trying to rebuild. Burger King losing operators faster than it can replace them. Even McDonald's, one of the most powerful brands in the world, facing lawsuits, backlash, renovations nobody wants to pay for, and rising ingredient costs they can't fully control. If these giants, with their billions in resources, their massive supply networks, and their global presence, are this close to the edge, imagine how vulnerable the average household is. This is why you cannot afford to be passive. You cannot wait. You cannot assume things will magically get better. Because history shows us that when economic collapse begins, it doesn't reverse overnight. It accelerates. The collapse of fast food chains is just the surface of a much deeper problem, one that touches food security, job stability, local economies, supply chains, and financial resilience. Each failing store is a warning that the foundation is cracking. And when the foundation cracks, everything built on top of it becomes unstable. But here's the good news. Collapse doesn't have to mean disaster for you. It can mean opportunity, if you choose to respond with action instead of fear. That's the key difference between people who survive economic storms and people who are blindsided by them. Survivors prepare early. They pay attention to the warning signs. They build strength while others are still in denial. And that's exactly what you must do now. Start by building your food security. You've already seen how supply chain breakdowns can remove basic items from shelves. Buns, condiments, lettuce, beef, everything. If big brands can't guarantee consistent supplies, then neither can your local store. That is why every household needs a minimum of a few weeks' worth of food at all times, preferably more. Rice, beans, oats, pasta, canned meat, peanut butter, powdered milk, flour, cooking oil, salt, sugar. These staples last a long time and give you stability. When shelves empty or prices spike, you won't panic. You'll be ready. Next, strengthen your emergency supplies. When communities lose businesses, local services weaken too. Police response slows. Medical access becomes strained. Basic utilities become unreliable. That's why having first aid kits, flashlights, batteries, portable chargers, water filtration, emergency radios, and alternative cooking equipment is no longer prepper paranoia. It's basic survival. These items give you independence. They give you security. They give you peace of mind when chaos hits. Then, look at your financial resilience. The collapse of fast food giants proves that jobs disappear fast. Hours get cut. Franchises shut down. If you rely on one source of income, you're vulnerable. Start building alternative income streams. Learn practical skills that can earn money or support your family during hard times. Reduce unnecessary expenses. Build a small savings buffer. Your long-term stability depends on it. Finally, and most importantly, build your mindset. Because preparedness is not just about food or supplies. It's about confidence. It's about strength. It's about the belief that you can protect your family no matter what happens. When the world feels unstable, you must become the stable one. When the system cracks, you must become your own system. When corporations and governments fail, you must rely on your own preparation, your own planning, and your own resilience. That's what this chapter is about. Transforming fear into empowerment. The collapse of fast food giants isn't meant to scare you. It is meant to wake you up. These chains are warning you about the future. They are showing you what happens when a system becomes stretched too far. They are showing you what happens when inflation eats away at profitability, when supply chains weaken, when debt rises, when the cost of everything skyrockets. They are showing you how fragile society really is. And the truth is, you are not powerless in all this. You have the ability to prepare. You have the ability to take action. You have the ability to build a level of security that most people never think about until it's too late. You don't need massive resources. You don't need complete knowledge. You just need to start. One item, one decision, one step at a time. Because the people who take action now will not be the ones standing in long lines when shortages hit. They will not be the ones panicking when stores close without warning. They will not be the ones wondering how they'll feed their families when prices double again. They will be the ones who were ready. This chapter is your reminder that collapse is not the end. It is the beginning of your opportunity to build strength, to build resilience, and to build peace of mind. The question is not, will the system fail? The signs already say it will. The real question is, will you be prepared when it does? The truth is clear now. You've seen what's happening. The closures, the shortages, the rising prices, the failing systems, none of this is random. It's a warning. A final reminder that stability isn't promised. But you don't have to face this collapse unprepared. You have the power to act today, to build security while others stay vulnerable. Hope is not a strategy. Action is. Start small, stay consistent, and protect your family before the next shock hits. The future belongs to those who prepare for it now. Stay ready, stay aware, stay resilient.